Motherfucker wanna shit. You gonna take the pole? You gonna take the pole on the door? You stay, motherfucker. What are you mad at for? Ain't no motherfucking code the same. What's the code? Ain't shit. Why the code ain't working?
Surveillance footage captured on a bystander's cell phone shows Arlington law enforcement units converging on the entrance of the Spa Galleria strip mall on South Cooper Street, responding to a shots-fired call. The timestamp placed the emergency response just after 10 in the morning on a Friday. According to investigators, a 37-year-old woman had entered the commercial building armed with a handgun and discharged multiple rounds at a man she had previously been in a relationship with, targeting him while he sat in a barber's chair mid-haircut. What initially registered as a domestic shooting rooted in a broken romance rapidly revealed itself as something far more layered. Court filings, allegations of financial fraud, a vanished $96,000, an active protective order, terroristic threat charges, and a business empire built on knowledge that one party claimed the other had stolen entirely. The man targeted was William Todd Austin. The woman who pulled the trigger was Timone Michelle Williams. Both were 37 years old. Both were from Bossier City, Louisiana. Both were dead before the week was out. William Todd Austin had relocated from Louisiana, completed his secondary education at Westport High School in Missouri in 2006, and eventually established himself in the Dallas-Carrollton corridor of North Texas. His professional footprint was wide and deliberately cultivated. Austin began his entrepreneurial career vending wigs and hair products, then expanded his reach considerably. In August 2016, he partnered with a platform called Entrepreneur Blueprint and simultaneously launched an operation called the Vendor Mansion. But the venture that defined his public brand, the one plastered across his social media profiles and wrapped in vinyl across the side of a Tesla Cybertruck, was Credit Champs, a credit restoration and business funding company that Austin positioned as a financial liberation service for everyday people. His promotional content was slick and aggressive. Client testimonials flooded his pages, each one framing Credit Champs as the rare, legitimate option in an industry saturated with fraudulent operators. Austin leaned into the authenticity angle hard, presenting himself as someone who had navigated the labyrinth of personal and business credit from a position of disadvantage and emerged not just competent but expert. He promoted financial literacy with the fervor of a true believer, posting content that declared fixing credit was the singular obligation of anyone serious about escaping economic struggle. Beyond credit repair, Austin maintained a side presence as a private chef, regularly posting cooking content alongside one of his sons. He had celebrated his 37th birthday on the 15th of May 2025, less than 2 months before the morning that ended his life. Timone Michelle Williams occupied the same professional world as Austin and brought credentials that preceded him by years. A United States Army veteran, Williams had translated her post-service discipline into an entrepreneurial career. She founded Lux Credit Services and held the titles of CEO, financial strategist, credit analyst, tax preparer, and mentor simultaneously. On paper, the pairing of Austin and Williams read like a strategic alliance between two high-functioning operators in the same lane. Two ambitious entrepreneurs, both Louisiana-born, both building brands in the North Texas credit repair space. Their relationship produced a child, a son named Amiri Blue Austin, born on the 25th of December, 2022, whom Williams referred to as her Christmas baby. She was now raising 2 children. The social media presence they maintained as a couple projected exactly the image one would expect. Business announcements, family milestones, the polished exterior of a power couple ascending together. Beneath that surface, the architecture was collapsing. At some point, the romantic relationship fractured entirely, and with it, the business partnership. Todd Austin was excluded from Michelle Williams' residence. The split was not clean. On Friday morning, the 11th of July 2025, Austin had a scheduled appointment at the Salon and Spa Galleria on South Cooper Street in Arlington, Texas. A large multi-suite commercial building housing dozens of independent operators, barbers, stylists, nail technicians, each running their own booth as an autonomous business. Austin was a recognized regular at the establishment. His barber, known publicly as Dax, had been cutting Austin's hair for 12 consecutive years, long enough that Austin was described not as a client but as extended family. At approximately 10:15 that morning, Austin settled into the barber's chair in the suite near the rear of the building. Williams knew his schedule. She knew exactly where he would be. She entered the building shortly after Austin arrived and moved directly toward the back corridor housing the barber suites. Within minutes, gunshots rang through the building. Patrons and workers erupted into panic, screaming and scattering. A 911 call went out immediately. When Arlington police units arrived on the scene, Williams was reportedly attempting to exit the building, but reversed course upon spotting officers and retreated inside. When law enforcement entered the salon, Austin was discovered with critical gunshot wounds to the chest area and was pronounced dead at the scene. Williams was also found gravely injured. She was transported to a hospital and did not survive. The barber who had witnessed everything that unfolded in his suite was too traumatized to speak publicly at the scene. His wife arrived as other salon workers stood outside the building in collective shock, attempting to process what had just occurred inside a place where the most dramatic daily event should have been a fresh fade. Police secured Williams's white Tesla in the parking lot and had it towed. Austin's family was permitted to take possession of his Cybertruck, the one bearing the Credit Champs logo, which had been parked outside. Homicide investigators worked the crime scene while the medical examiner's unit collected physical evidence. The initial media framing was straightforward and sympathetic in a particular direction. A thriving businessman was ambushed at his regular barbershop appointment by a jealous former girlfriend. That framing began to deteriorate the moment court records surfaced. On the 6th of March 2025, Michelle Williams had filed for a protective order in Denton County, Texas. The filing contained a dedicated section documenting alleged patterns of threatening and violent conduct attributed to William Todd Austin Jr. During the 2-year period preceding the filing, 11 days after that protective order was filed, Austin was arrested and booked in Collin County, Texas. His bond was set at $5,000. The custody petition filed alongside the protective order revealed that Williams was seeking sole managing conservatorship of their son Amiri, explicitly blocking joint custody arrangements. She was also pursuing monetary relief in excess of $250,000, capped at under $1 million. Those two figures alone, the dollar amount she was suing for, and the bond amount set after his arrest, suggested the scope of what had allegedly occurred between them extended well beyond a bad breakup. Ring doorbell camera footage then emerged, showing Austin at Williams's door, footage that depicted someone who had been legally barred from the premises, attempting to gain entry, and escalating in aggression when denied access. Private text message exchanges between Williams and a confidant also began circulating online. In those messages, Williams had forwarded screenshots of the Ring footage alongside photographs of damage to her property. The text painted a picture of ongoing psychological and financial warfare. Williams described to her contact how Austin had been living downtown using a credit privacy number when they first met, behind on rent, behind on bills, financially unstable, and how she had taken it upon herself to teach him the credit repair industry from the ground up, accelerating his income to levels he had never previously reached, only to watch him absorb everything she built and then use it against her. She stated plainly that before her intervention, he knew nothing about credit, and that his specialty in business credit was knowledge she had transferred to him. She noted his original enterprise was limited to selling hair products and vendor lists. The messages also showed screenshots in which Austin himself acknowledged being in a difficult position. A separate screenshot showed Austin requesting that Williams record a glowing testimonial for his business, claiming he had been responsible for repairing her credit, an assertion Williams categorically denied as fabricated. Williams's messages expressed that she had been his only romantic partner in Texas to bear his child, conveyed her intent to confront him when she could access his location past a gated entrance, and described a relationship that had not simply ended but had curdled into something she experienced as predatory and inescapable. The most substantial public statement defending Williams came from a woman named Nikki Hunter, who posted a video online identifying herself as Williams's close friend and declaring her intent to correct the false narratives spreading across social media in the wake of the murder-suicide. Hunter was explicit. Austin had not transmitted any illness to Williams. He was not engaged in infidelity at the time of the incident, and the two had been separated for well over a year before July 11th. Hunter described Williams as a self-made woman who had risen from nothing, a veteran who had constructed a legitimate business and financial life as a single mother only to watch Austin dismantle it systematically after the breakup. According to Hunter, when Austin and Williams separated, Austin had been distributing video footage from a prior confrontation at the home footage in which Williams had drawn a weapon on him and demanded he vacate a residence. He refused to leave, sending that footage to his client base. An active restraining order and a terroristic threat charge for allegedly threatening both Williams and her son were already on record against him at the time of the shooting. Hunter then described the financial mechanism that allegedly gutted Williams's life. Austin and Williams had maintained a joint business bank account. Following their separation, according to Hunter's account, Austin managed to have Williams removed from that account entirely, simultaneously rerouting all associated email communications to a new address he controlled, effectively making her invisible to the account. Williams had traveled to Las Vegas for a weekend. When she returned, the account was empty. Hunter described the full scope of financial destruction that allegedly followed. Roughly 18 months of mortgage payments that Williams had made from the business account were reversed through fraudulent dispute filings, pushing Williams to the edge of foreclosure. Austin allegedly accessed Williams's personal account through her phone and drained it as well, locked her out of business accounts, absorbed her $10,000 military settlement, declined to contribute financially to the care of their shared son, and continued to actively promote Credit Champs across social media and drive a branded Cybertruck past Williams's residence, visible on her Ring camera while she allegedly had $0 and was facing imminent homelessness. Hunter stated that Williams had reached out to family and friends for financial help and received assistance from only a handful of people. Hunter also disclosed that she herself had just won a separate lawsuit against Austin and had received payment the day before the murder-suicide occurred. Hunter concluded by acknowledging she was not justifying the violence but stated clearly that she understood what had driven Williams to it. Before Hunter's account could fully settle in public discourse, someone closely connected to Austin emerged online to challenge her credibility directly and aggressively. This individual alleged that Nikki Hunter was not Michelle Williams' close personal friend, but was in fact a former client and paid mentee of Todd Austin, who had purchased his credit repair mentorship services. The counter-narrative alleged that Hunter had no prior acquaintance with Williams at all and had only sought her out after a falling out with Austin's circle, positioning herself on Williams' side as a mechanism for settling her own grievance with Austin and growing her own brand's visibility. The individual raised Hunter's ownership of a competing credit repair operation called Rich Reports, noting that Hunter operated in the identical industry as both Austin and Williams, and that her motivations for going public were arguably commercial rather than personal. That suspicion was anchored by a verifiable data point. On the 6th of February 2025, Nikki Hunter had publicly announced she was suing Todd Austin and alleged he had sent her threatening text messages, including a claim that he intended to have her jailed on fraud accusations. Whether Hunter's defense of Williams was rooted in genuine solidarity, personal vendetta, or a calculated combination of both remained contested. A second voice introduced yet another layer of contradiction. This individual argued that the conflict had never been as one-directional, as Hunter described that both Austin and Williams had engaged in aggressive conduct toward each other, and specifically alleged that Williams had been the first to change the email addresses on their shared banking accounts, locking Austin out and forcing him to leave with nothing but a backpack and the clothes on his body because she had refused to allow him to retrieve his belongings. This account further alleged that Williams had his vehicles towed and threatened to report him to law enforcement for assault if he attempted to recover them, and that the concept of a 37-year-old executing something like a reverse mortgage as described by Hunter was functionally impossible. This counter-account also flatly rejected claims that Austin had been romantically involved with men or had transmitted any illness, and it suggested Hunter herself had a romantic history with Austin, positioning her not as Williams's advocate, but as someone with her own unresolved entanglement, a score to settle dressed up as righteous defense. Anonymous posts continued flooding social media with additional unverified allegations about Austin. One claimed he had fathered 9 children across multiple relationships and owed a cumulative $200,000 in child support arrears, allegedly evading collection by concealing income and assets inside LLCs and operating his businesses without filing tax returns. A separate post alleged that the Credit Champs operation had involved selling client personal information without consent, and stated the poster had an active court date against Austin, though none of these claims were substantiated through official documentation. What the court filings did confirm was that Williams had been pursuing over $250,000 in monetary relief and sole custody of Amiri simultaneously, and that by July 2025, her financial situation had reportedly reached a terminal condition. Zero access to the shared business account, no independent income stream, a foreclosure notice actively threatening her homeownership, no child support contributions from Austin, and Austin, throughout all of it, continuing to post on social media about financial freedom and credit as the key to breaking cycles of poverty, promoting Credit Champs as a going concern, advertising the branded Cybertruck, and projecting uninterrupted prosperity. The day before the shooting, he posted that poor credit was the root cause of people's financial struggles. On the morning of July 11th itself, before Williams arrived at the Spa Galleria, he posted again, this time framing credit repair as a non-negotiable top priority. The people who believed those posts taunted Williams in her condition also believed they were a factor in what she chose to do that morning. Dax the barber, the Arlington stylist who had cut Todd Austin's hair for 12 years and considered him family, gave his first public account of what the experience had done to him in the days following the incident. He described returning to his suite after the crime scene had been cleared, expecting to find it sanitized, and instead discovering dried blood on his equipment. He made the decision immediately that he could not continue to work in that space. He could not retain the barber chair in which Austin had been shot. He could not close his eyes for any sustained period of time without seeing what he had witnessed and never expected to see in a lifetime of cutting hair. Some of his clients refused to return to the salon and spa galleria entirely, traumatized by association. A couple in the building, a woman named Jessica Obara, whose husband was also in the trades, and her partner Mario had launched a GoFundMe for Dax without asking his permission or informing him in advance. Dax, by his own admission, initially resisted the idea. He was not the type to accept that kind of help. His wife and his pastor both counseled him that refusing the gesture was refusing a blessing, and he relented. The fundraiser was intended to cover the cost of relocating to a new suite at a different facility, replacing all of his equipment and starting over from scratch. Dax described the community support donations pouring in from people who had never sat in his chair and did not know his name as something he lacked the language to accurately describe. He had grown up cutting hair on his brothers in the family home after his mother's chili bowl attempts left crooked lines, had built a client base over 5 years in a shop before going independent, had operated by appointment only for roughly 15 years, and had constructed a professional identity entirely around the principle that taking care of existing clients was the only sustainable way to attract new ones. 80% of his business came through word of mouth. He described clients who had followed him from barber school, who had been sitting in his chair since his first week in the industry, who would follow him to whatever new location he established. He said that was not about a haircut. He said that with the utmost certainty. He described the experience of being supported by strangers as something he had no prior framework for, because in a world that spent considerable energy pitting people against each other, the response from people who had no stake in his well-being and no knowledge of his circumstances was genuinely disorienting in the best possible sense. He said he could be okay from one moment to the next. He said sometimes he was not okay. He said he could not keep his eyes shut for too long. Several days after the incident, a woman named Laquita Davis, who identified herself as someone who had been in a relationship with Todd Austin for approximately 2 years when he was between the ages of 24 and 26, published a detailed personal account. Davis described Williams at the time she and Austin met as a financially stable, single mother, a veteran with a steady income, a retirement benefit, a home she owned, and multiple vehicles. She characterized Austin as someone whose actual financial standing and track record bore little resemblance to the entrepreneurial persona he projected publicly. Their relationship had accelerated quickly but never reached marriage, and after the separation turned hostile, Austin had allegedly begun returning to Williams's home uninvited and escalating in aggression, which precipitated the March 2025 protective order. Davis's account laid out the financial mechanism in granular detail. Following the separation and his initial departure from Williams's residence, Austin allegedly removed Williams's name from the shared Credit Champs business bank account, rerouted all account-linked email correspondence to a new address under his exclusive control, and withdrew the full accessible balance approximately $96,000, leaving Williams with no access to funds she had been depending on for daily living expenses. Having stepped back from work to care for their infant son, Austin allegedly found an additional avenue into Williams's personal account and cleared those funds as well. He then allegedly filed fraudulent disputes against 18 months of mortgage payments that Williams had legitimately made from the business account, triggering a foreclosure notice that arrived in July, demanding $55,000 within 60 days, or requiring her to vacate the property. Because her name had been stripped from the business account, contesting those fraudulent dispute claims through normal channels was structurally obstructed. The money allegedly extracted from the joint account was subsequently used to purchase the Cybertruck. Legal proceedings over the jointly built enterprise, Credit Champs, had concluded in the week before July 11th with a court ruling in Austin's favor, awarding him full ownership of the business and all 3 vehicles acquired under its commercial umbrella. Williams walked away from those proceedings with no business, no income stream, and pennies in her personal account. She had made a direct approach to Austin, requesting $20,000 as a stabilizing bridge for herself and the baby, an appeal he reportedly refused with contempt. Davis's account characterized what followed, not as jealousy, but as the logical terminus of complete financial decimation inflicted on a woman who had helped build what was being taken from her. Davis also disclosed her own experience with Austin during their earlier relationship. She had introduced him to entrepreneurship, exposed him to a higher caliber of lifestyle and business strategy, watched him absorb everything she shared and reproduce it publicly without acknowledgement, and received instead a private pattern of manipulation, possessiveness, and deflection. Child support correspondence had arrived at her residence, addressed to Austin with multiple different names. When she raised the discrepancy, Austin told her he had only 3 children, and that the others being attributed to him were the result of false claims. His explanations never cohered. When she asked why he maintained no contact with his children, he attributed it to dysfunctional relationships with the mothers. Davis closed her account with the observation that one can be everything a partner could want and still be delivered to someone incapable of receiving it properly. The cascading pattern her account described the financial exploitation, the appropriation of knowledge and business infrastructure, the multiple women, the accumulating debts and disputed obligations mapped directly onto what others had independently characterized. What is unambiguous is the human wreckage the 11th of July 2025 produced. 2 people ceased to exist. 2 children lost both parents on the same morning. The barber who had spent 12 years building a professional bond with one of those 2 people was forced to abandon his workspace, replace his equipment, relocate his entire operation, and carry an image behind his eyes that he cannot make disappear simply by closing them. Every worker in the salon and spa galleria that morning absorbed a trauma that did not belong to them. Clients who returned to collect their vehicles, to give statements, to simply check on people they knew, carried fragments of it back into their own lives. The only certainties are the ones stamped into public record: the protective order, the arrest, the court ruling, the foreclosure notice, the $96,000 that vanished from an account a woman could no longer access, and the 2 bodies that Arlington officers found inside a commercial building on South Cooper Street at 10:15 in the morning on what had started, for almost everyone inside it, as a completely ordinary Friday.